Hi, I'm Matt, and this is, and we are going to tell you how to come up with the best name for your business. Now we're going to break this presentation down into 3 sections. The first is, what do you look for in a name? The second is, how do you come up with that name? And the third is, how do you test that name?
So a good business name has to meet 5 basic criteria. 1, it has to be easy to remember. 2, it has to be easy to say. 3, it has to be easy to spell and unambiguous in its spelling. 4, it has to be evocative of the product. And 5, and perhaps most importantly, it should always suggest a positive association.
Now the name doesn't need to be all these things. Amazon doesn't evoke books, for example, but it achieves in all the other dimensions, and it gave Bezos flexibility to go into other areas. So that's important.
The second part about coming up with a name is actually coming up with a name. But before you do that, you got to figure out, what are you trying to communicate? What's the product? What's the service? What's the name going to do to communicate those things to the consumer? Take Netflix, for example. In 1997, when Reed Hastings started the company, he didn't call the company DVDs by mail. He called it Netflix because he knew down the line the business was going to be moving in the direction of streaming videos over the internet.
Okay, so the first step in generating your list of names is enlisting your friends. You tell your friends what the company is about, and you go to your creative ones and you have them come up with ideas. The people that are good with words, that read a lot, the wordies, have them help you.
There's a much more procedural and analytical way of going about getting names together. What you do is you come up with a bunch of words and word chunks that are evocative of the kind of ideas you're trying to communicate.
Okay, so you can use dictionary words, you can use proper nouns, or you can use the root words from other languages. Okay, so let's give an example. Say we're trying to come up with a name for a soft, flexible bicycle seat. So some dictionary words we could use would be like saddle, seat, leather, comfort. Okay, if we wanted to do, if we're looking at proper nouns, we could be, what do you think of when you think of a bicycle seat? Lance Armstrong, Alps, tour. If you look at like the root words, you can look at the root for seat with legio, or you look at either the Greek or Latin is always a good way to go. The Latin word for whatever you're trying to communicate.
Once you come up with a list of names and word chunks, the next step is to assemble them into actual names. Now you can do that in 2 ways. They're either natural names or synthetic names. The natural names break down into either the actual word that you came up with, for example, the Armstrong, or some kind of a compound like the soft ride or the soft flex. The synthetic names, on the other hand, are a combination of sounds and words and word chunks and everything that you can think of together. My favorite example happens to be the Zooter.
Alright, so now that you've got your list of names, it's time to start paring down the field. Now the first thing you do is to check the availability of the domain names for everything. If the domain name is not available, get rid of it. Second thing you do is give your long list of all the chunks that you have to your wordy friends, the friends whose creative juices that you respect, and have them list their top 20. If a name doesn't appear in someone's top 20, it should be off the list. Now that you have this, it's time to get a little Wharton. Okay, you can build a spreadsheet and you're going to create criterion to evaluate the names. Okay, so you're going to do the liking by the team on a 1 to 5 scale, then you're also going to do ease of pronunciation, ease of spelling, positive brand associations, and length. You're going to rank them and you're going to add it up and you're going to see which the top names are.
Once you have the spreadsheet built out and you have all that data in it and you crunch all the numbers and you figure out what are your top 10 names, the next thing you got to do is test the names. So how do you do that? You do what everybody does at Wharton. You build a survey. What goes into the survey? First, you got to include information on what the business is. Then you got to list the top 10 names, and you're asking respondents to indicate from 1 to 10 how they rank each name. In addition to that, you're also asking them to indicate any associations they might have with the name. Finally, with a little bit of time in between that process and this last one, what you do is you ask each of the respondents to say which of the names do they remember. This way you're capturing recall.
Alright, so now you've got all your data. You got the lists, you've got the top names. Now it's time to make a choice. Now you can't go with the top name, and a lot of people will do that, especially at Wharton. We like the numbers. But sometimes you might want to go with your gut. It might be number 2, it might be number 3, it might be number 4 on the list. That's okay. It's up to you to make the decision. Let me tell you a little story about a time when a company called TerraPass went through one of these naming tournaments, and it actually was called EcoPass. But I can't even imagine that company is EcoPass. Can you? No. So pick your name, make your company, make your millions, give it back to Wharton so we can have bigger GSRs.